Hello, this podcast is going to be for overcrowding in prisons and how it affects inmates' mental health and how we're able to fix this global issue. A little bit about me before we get started. My name is Skyra Shock, and I'm a psychology major with a minor in criminal justice. I am a senior this year in my last semester at Bloomsburg University. I picked this topic because I currently have an internship in a prison, and there's overcrowding there as well as globally in all prisons across the United States and other states and countries. Overcrowding is a big global issue and it affects inmates' mental health severely. This is a very big global issue that countries face because so many people get incarcerated every year. This problem should be addressed and solved since it affects the inmates but also the staff. This is a global issue because prisons are overcrowded in the majority of countries. More than 60% of 181 countries are over 100% capacity. This makes it more difficult for inmates to be able to get rehabilitation and able to be reintegrated into society. Inmates' health could also rapidly decline and not many people would notice. Another reason it is a global issue is because the world's prison population continues to increase every day and every year because there is new crime done every single day. Overcrowding in prisons is extremely dangerous. It violates basic human rights. It confines many people to a room where only 2 to 4 people should be. People are not able to sleep, eat, or go to the bathroom when they please. Since overcrowding is a problem, the prison does not have a budget for good food quality as well. This leads to poorer food and inmates not getting the proper nutrition. And this is where they're supposed to be housed when they're doing a crime, so the state or country is responsible for their housing. There are unsafe living conditions, meaning disease is spread more quickly, as well as there being too much human activity, which leads to mold and poor air quality. Diseases such as tuberculosis, COVID, or influenza can be easily spread. It makes it more difficult for inmates to get rehabilitation, as I said previously, because it is difficult to get better and may not be able to not do drugs or drink alcohol or whatever you were in jail for when there are so many other people doing it as well. So it might be harder for the inmate to not do it. There's definitely less access to care as well as mental health or physical health. Since there is so much overcrowding, staff isn't able to do as much since there is not a good staff to inmate ratio. This also leads to higher spread of diseases as well as people possibly dying. Now we're going to get into how this affects inmates' mental health. So this affects inmates' mental health because there's not enough staff to cover the mental health needs of the inmates. If someone comes in with depression or anxiety already and do not get professional help or medication, that could potentially lead to suicide. And since there's overcrowding, there's not a big staff to cover that overcrowding of those inmates. Suicide is a very important thing because when inmates get into jail, they think their life is over, and the inmate feels overwhelmed. And everybody also goes through a classification and they see a mental health professional. There is lower motivation for inmates to work in prisons or have a life outside of prison since there's that, they have a very low motivation since there is too many people as well as their basic rights are already being violated. There's a higher risk for violence because since inmates are overcrowded and most likely in a bad mood since they are in a cell with too many people, there's a higher risk for violence to occur between the inmates. There could be violence that occurs if someone does not like their cellmate or someone stole something or anything could happen, and especially in the heat, there's a big correlation between heat and violence. Some dangers of overcrowding in prisons it is easier to sneak stuff in. Since there are already lots of inmates, people may not be searched thoroughly enough before entering the prison. Also, at visitation, visitors may be able to get drugs, a phone, or other items that are contraband. There is less observation of the inmates, which leads to more leniency. Drugs are able to be swapped as well as trading someone for something else. It is harder to pinpoint gangs and violent acts. If 2 people get into a fight, it is hard to tell which 2 since there are so many inmates, and usually the inmates don't snitch. Lastly, we're getting into how all the different countries are dealing with this global issue. So, Europe is decreasing sentencing lengths in order to get people out of jail quicker and lower the limit that they're in time. They are decreasing sentences for people with the not-so-serious and very small crimes such as traffic violations, stealing small items, etc. They are also promoting alternative sanctions such as state hospitals in order to deal with people so they do not have to live in jail anymore and get the proper help that they need. All the countries in the photos to the left determining the functions of imprisonment and their limits, as well as ensuring pretrial detention is only used as a last resort and they are put in jail for the shortest periods possible. They also use the shortening sentences that Europe uses.